Welcome to the Bend Like Bamboo Resilience Podcast, where we discover how life's greatest challenges can become our greatest strengths. I'm your host, Amanda Campbell, kinesiologist, MS specialist, resilience coach, and author. Get ready to be inspired by these remarkable humans who share their raw, real stories of transformation, the breakthrough moments, the lessons learned in the trenches, and the practical wisdom that turned their greatest challenges into their greatest strengths. These conversations offer hope, tools, and proof that resilience isn't just possible, it's your birthright. Together, let's discover how flexibility can become your superpower, turning life's storms into stepping stones towards the person you're meant to become. Let's dive straight into our next conversation. Good morning, Richard Ellis. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Oh, fabulous. Let me introduce you properly. So, Richard Ellis, also known as the Energy Coach, has worked with leaders for almost 2 decades. He specializes in helping business owners, corporate leaders, and teams unlock their full potential through optimal health and performance. Richard's journey began in the health and fitness industry, where he built a reputation as a high performance coach focusing on energy management, resilience, and well-being. And over the years, he has expanded his impact as a coach and speaker to improve staff well-being and productivity. His approach is simple but effective, helping individuals make small, sustainable changes that lead to massive shifts in energy, focus, and overall performance. Oh, I can't wait to talk to you today, Richard. How are
It's as
you?
if I wrote it myself.
We have such alignment in how we help our clients with,
Mm.
so you're the energy coach. Tell me, what does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, or honestly, I'm not sure. But I think it's that I think burnout's always been an issue, probably for the last 10 years or so for me, and I think business ownership comes with some of that potentially. And I realized that I was burning the candle at both ends in a good way, but a naive way. And having kind of come out the other side of it and realized, reverse engineered it almost. Well, how did I get here? Okay. I was doing all this other stuff and working long days, and that becomes the norm. You normalize it, so you almost can't see what's going on. And so, when you see the figures, it was when I had a cortisol test, and I could see that my daily cortisol was kind of like 10% of where it should have been.
Wow.
It was a good wake up call because I'm a sort of I like numbers. I'm a data kind of guy.
Yeah,
And yeah, that was a real reality check. And so my journey back from that was all about restoring my own energy. And I
yeah.
suppose that's the bit that I can empathize with people. Like I've never been an overweight person. So, if somebody wants to lose weight, I can help them, but I can't put myself into their shoes in the same way I can with someone who's physically exhausted, physically, mentally exhausted, because that I know what it feels like. And so there's that true sort of proper empathy for those people. And suppose that's where the name evolved from. It was, rebuilding my own energy and realizing the recipe for maintaining it while still doing all the things you want to do is can be hard for some people to find. And I suppose, that's now what I hang my hat on and say, look, I can help you with that stuff because I've already been there myself.
Oh, I think that's what makes a good coach is, people seek us when we're not only the practitioner, but also the patient and
Mm.
where we've really been in their shoes. And you can help someone so much more when you really know how they truly have felt and you've transformed it yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So what were your signs like when you were burnt out? Like, what are a few examples of how you felt?
Great question. I think one of them was the over-reliance on coffee. So it was my
Yes.
daily crutch, and um, it was it was under someone saying to me, well, what are your normal energy levels like? I was like, well, they're fine. They're absolutely fine. Yeah. And then going, so what are they like without coffee? I'm like, I don't know. And I
Yeah.
was like, because actually, I think it was the wellness guys, Australian guys, who were talking about it. So that's when I started listening to podcasts. So they're Aussie guys, and they talked about, well, where's your actual energy level as opposed to your caffeine supported energy level.
Yeah.
And so that made me reflect and go, ooh, actually, if I had to stop, I think I'd really struggle. And so I sort of ran that experiment and sort of weaned myself off with decaf coffee, so I could still get the hit and of the habit of the experience, and then got to the point where I've sort of fell in love with herbal teas and finding some other way of enjoying a hot drink, and realized that that I was not doing so well, and it was quite an average experience, not a great experience, and so that was kind of the first sign and symptom that things were going the wrong way. And like I
Mm.
said earlier, that the evidence of seeing that cortisol test on paper
Yeah.
just brought it home. That was then the proper reflection was, okay, it's not just the coffee, it's the long days, it's the overtraining, it's the this, it's the that, all of the things that come with business ownership and
Yes.
liking to be active.
Yeah, well, when we're already stressed and we're, throwing down one or even five, up to even 5 cups of coffee a day, it's going to
Mm,
fire adrenaline, and that's
mm,
our stress response, and so is
yeah,
cortisol. And when we're
yeah,
already in a stressful state, that can tip someone over the edge, and that's what we don't realize because we get so addicted to that fight or flight feeling,
yeah.
and we think that's the norm. But
Mm,
my signs were, I started to get really irritable. My
yes.
digestion wasn't working as well, and I was
Mm,
making decisions from stress and worry rather than from that deep inner knowing and gut
mm,
intuition of, energetic alignment. And yeah, I'm
yeah.
really so grateful that I know the difference between those two now.
Yes, yes. I think that was probably another one of those symptoms or signs, I should say, was the irritability. So being very snappy,
Yeah,
very short fuse in conversations, and
yeah,
and not actually being very nice to be around, to be honest. It's
I know.
those aren't the people you want to spend time with because there's not a lot of good side. It's all downside.
No, no, you want to, be a fun person to be around,
Mm,
and that makes not only our day filled with more joy, but it is also going to affect our performance and how we show up and how we can build relationships, within our businesses too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, if you talk about energy being our greatest asset,
Mm.
yet most business leaders we both are working with are typically running on empty while stressing about, finances and business. What's the conversation that you have with CEOs and leaders when you're suggesting, I don't know what your tools are, but mine are, my 6 pillars of health are, journaling, meditation, nutrition, movement, resilience, but they have this, that's usually say, "Oh, I don't have time for that." What's the conversation you have?
And there's the first clue, right? If they haven't got time for it, there's that old saying. It says you should meditate for a minute every day, and if you're busy, you should meditate for an hour.
Then you need it more. Exactly.
And those are the people that need to hear that saying because
Yeah.
it'll actually stop them and make them think. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. So there isn't necessarily a sort of specific model. Like there are lots of different ways in. So I try and find something that resonates for the person. So it might be the wheel of life where you've got 10 or 8 components and you get people to score themselves on each of those components because
Mm,
you can come back to it and remeasure it. We've got a lovely Maori health model called Te Whare Tapawha, which has 4 pillars, and each of the pillars holds the roof up. And if one of the pillars isn't strong, then the roof's going to fall in. So, you've got spiritual health, you've got physical health, you've got mental health, and you've got family and community. So those are the 4 pillars.
yeah.
So it depends on the person in front of me as to what angle I take with them, because it really needs to make the most sense to them. And then I work with that, and I bring a health coaching perspective, so it's very much client driven. Asking the right question, and I don't know their life; they are the expert of their life. So I have to ask the right question for them to then give me what I need to help lead them down the path towards what they're prepared to do to make the behavior change, to make the shift in the energy, the habits, the lifestyle, whatever it may be. So. Does that answer the question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And,
Oh.
I can relate. I mean, as a kinesiologist, I use tools to help clients to get out of that stress response to promote
Mm,
growth and repair instead. Because, we meet them where they're at when they're super stressed. And look, I'm the
mm,
same. I'm an overachiever. And that's
mm,
why I push myself too
mm.
hard. And it's that, isn't it? It's that mindset
Yeah.
around, well,
Yeah.
why are you doing that? And it's not just because of our responsibilities and all of our tasks that we have as business owners. It's also what you believe about your expectations of what equals successful.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, absolutely right. And I recently qualified as a personal values coach. So it allows me to deliver a workshop around people's values. They identify what they are, we make sense of that, what their priorities are, and lots of pennies drop when people follow that process because they kind of generally know how they're driven once they're into adult life and a little more experience. But still there's opportunities for learning through those things because sometimes, and one of the things I found with my values is that I actually have an internal conflict. So one of my values is directly opposite another value.
Yeah.
And so it naturally creates this internal conflict. So sometimes I'm driven by this and sometimes I'm driven by that, but they're quite opposite to each other. And so, that happens for individuals, but it also happens for organizations where they're in teams. Some
Yes.
people get on, other people don't get on. And
Yes.
when you're living your life and butting up against values that you can't align with, that can be a path down the burnout path. So
Absolutely. This is
another
so
consideration.
key. That inner conflict it's a
Mm,
whole chapter in my book because the way that I see it is our goals can sometimes be in conflict with what we're really believing
yeah,
about
yeah,
ourselves and what's possible. And
yeah,
I love your example of two values being in conflict as well. And this is another thing that can create the stress response. And if
yeah.
we can understand what's the cause of stress, we can then reimagine that, reorganize that, and that's how
Mm,
we come out
mm.
of burnout.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a big one. So I like having that as another tool,
Yeah.
both for individuals and for groups, because it sort of
Yes.
pulls back the curtains on all of that stuff, which sometimes hasn't ever been. A lot of organizations are good at that stuff. They do the disc profiling and all of those kinds of things, which is useful. But the values kind of goes another layer down.
Yes. So that I imagine is how you work with teams is you'll go deeper into identifying values and do you then go and work out what's in conflict?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't started using it yet because I literally only did the course recently, so it's not hasn't been fully deployed yet, but it will
Sounds
be. But that's exactly the technique. So it's about a 2.5 hour workshop, and everybody gets to understand the different values, what theirs are, what their priorities are, how they fit in with the other values in the room, and just sort of identify both. Values when you're in a good state, so you're in a more of a rest and digest state where you're thinking clear with the prefrontal cortex. But then the slippery behaviors, which is the nickname for when you're not in a good state, when you're fighting and fleeing, and that value can actually show its ugly side. And so being aware of both the positive and the negative of each of the values equips people, because then other people can see it in other people and go, "Are you sure that's what you mean? Do you want to take another, moment to think about that sort of thing?" So colleagues can help colleagues when they're aware of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that would be game changing for a business that's going through
Mm,
mega change and stress.
mm,
There
mm.
is a testimonial that you shared with me where you helped one of your clients who managed to drop their blood pressure significantly.
Mm.
Can you help me to understand what were the specific or small changes that you helped your client make?
Yeah, it was part of a bigger program. So I was working with a dairy company, and it was a startup. So it was, reasonably loose. People finding their feet, but they were very strong on culture, and so that's why I was invited to work with them. And high pressure environment, probably not making all the healthiest decisions day to day in terms of lifestyle and nutrition, just because the work had to get done and the business was growing and it needed customers, etc., etc. And it was after a few weeks I started having sort of individual conversations with people in the organization and just asking the right questions again, just sort of picking away at threads and then just pulling that thread and finding out more. And by that stage, I'd built up enough trust with people for them to feel comfortable to open up. And that's really where the gold is when I can see that we've got to that stage. They're able to share the stuff that they're not going to tell a stranger, right? And so it was a matter of finding out what those lifestyle issues were, and obviously a high consumption of sugar, undersleeping, going to the gym twice a day, thinking that that was the solution to the
Do
blood pressure.
more, not less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, just keep pushing.
Yeah.
And so yes, it was a combination of those sorts of lifestyle factors and even an issue with dairy. So there was an obvious reaction when this person consumed dairy, but it hadn't really been addressed. And so, after a couple of sessions, it was clear that there was some obvious low-hanging fruit that we could chip away at, and that's what we did. So it was, what can we do with the dairy? Can we find an alternative? Is there a way around this, or do we just need to go cold turkey for say 2 or 3 months and allow the sensitivity to heal, and then the gut can come back online again, and you might be fine with it. And then, is that much gym work necessary? How intense is each of those visits? How much cortisol are we already driving up from a high base rather than a low base? So, when we get that under control, then we're going to get set up for a better night's sleep. So you're going to be more restored the next day. Therefore, you probably don't need the extra coffee because you've got a better night's sleep. And so the blood pressure just came down as a result of all of these small changes.
Amazing.
And went back to the doctor, and the doctor had said, I've never seen it this low before. And the client was really happy. It was a big win for them. So
Yeah.
I was really chuffed with that. And I think that's why that person volunteered that testimonial. Actually, I didn't ask for it. And, so just one small example of the individual wins that can come out of an organizational program when the trust levels are high enough for you to be able for me to be able to make an impact with those individuals.
Yeah. Well, again, like the coffee example, where, if you're already stressed and then you're throwing in too much coffee into your diet, that can further push you over the edge into the stress response more and more. And so can too much exercise when you are stressed, which is why
Mm.
I talk to my clients about a balance of, strength and endurance, but also restorative exercise for those
Yeah,
times when you're stressed, because you'll get more benefit out of doing less
absolutely.
in
Absolutely.
movement, yeah, in that way. So by the sounds of it, you're covering the pillars of health, the basics of mind, body, food, and connection, and you're just unraveling, the threads.
Mm.
And it's
Mm.
unique for everybody, isn't it? But, with what people
Yes.
are allergic to, what people are doing too much of. But then I want to ask you, like, obviously, what's the common denominator across the board is there
Mm.
seems to be a mindset. I don't know if you notice this with your clients, but I do, that forces our clients to push through with sheer willpower. But there's a different type of strength we're teaching them to be resilient, isn't there? And what does that mean for you?
Yeah. 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 Good point. And I think society has a lot to answer for in terms of that conditioning. I think that's part of the let's just keep pushing. And then you see, I was watching the Netflix documentary on The Biggest Loser the other day, which is
Yes.
this is back in the 90s, and I'm like, Jesus, did they really do this stuff? And that formed people's perception of what exercise should look like, what working with a personal trainer should look like,
Mm.
and that's how you get results. And it was really one-dimensional, and it kind of upset me that that was on TV for so long, and it and
Yeah.
it just feeds into that societal narrative, and that's the answer. And I mean, I can't say I'm any better than that because I literally went down that exact same path, was just pushing, pushing, pushing. But
Totally.
um, one of the lessons that I learned was that yoga is my friend, and I had never embraced it before. And the ironic thing is, my mother was a yoga teacher.
Oh, really? Oh, there you go.
But this is when I was a lot younger, and it was kind of like, I'm just rowing at school. I'm not going to do this yoga thing. And and actually, as to what you just referred to, Amanda, in terms of slowing down can be the most useful thing. That
Mm.
was one of the key components to my recovery, was to do two
Mm.
yoga sessions a week for a considerable amount of time.
Mm.
And that I just protected that time for me, and I made sure I had a little gap in my day so I could go and do the thing, come back, carry on with my day, and slowly but surely my energy levels were restored, amongst other things as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that
Yeah.
is the common denominator.
Yeah.
I think it's also driven by a world that is speeding up at a ridiculous rate. And I,
Yes, I
and I
agree.
think we're expected to be able to do everything and more in the same amount of time that our parents and our grandparents used to when the world was not going at this pace. And I think it's not their fault. I think, they're a victim of circumstances. And it's people like us who are able to stand back and say to them, is there another way? What else could this look like? Give yourself a moment to think about it because I
Yeah.
know there is, but I need you to try and imagine it first so I can help you find that path.
Yeah, it's an inward journey too, I think, where we get our love, connection, and approval, and we're shifting into a new identity where we're evolving, like almost on a soul, spiritual journey, to
Mm,
realize that we don't have to be and do so much to be efficient or even to be enough. And so
yeah.
when you realize that and it really drops and you start
Yeah.
to see how you learned it from, when you were younger and what you watched growing up and then what you've built in your usually 20s and 30s and then in your 40s you go, oh, there's got to be a different way, and it's
Mm,
so
mm,
much more rewarding and fulfilling when you can show up in your day knowing that you're leading with total authenticity and you've really done the work on, oh, what am I doing that's in that category of needing to be enough, needing approval, and all those extra things we tend to put on our
mm,
to-do list
mm,
that we don't really want to do, but we think we should. That creates that inner resistance and sadness and depression and fight or flight. And you
mm.
just let it all go. I really believe that that is building true resilience, is knowing the answer to those questions for yourself. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. And that's that self-development piece. I think people and organizations are really good at going, right, how can we make our people better? And it's all about skill-based development.
Mm.
And you can keep investing in that skill-based development till you're blue in the face. But if the person doing it doesn't change, then the outcome's going to be the same. And and so yeah, taking that time to reflect. As you were talking, I was just thinking about FOMO. So FOMO is kind of one of those acronyms which was doing the rounds a while back, and I saw somebody's post about imagining FOMO as JOMO. So
Oh,
instead of
yeah.
fear of missing out, which
Yeah.
kind of drives anxiety and stress, and so JOMO is the joy of missing out.
Yes.
So, in other words, no, I can't come to that party because I'm doing something else, whatever it may be, and being able to say no and actually being really comfortable in that and
Yeah.
knowing that you're buying yourself time, you're buying yourself calm, you don't have to do all the things.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of feeds into that piece of being very self-aware of what you actually need
Yeah.
and not just going along with everything that's happening just because you feel like you should and not giving into the pressure and that classic FOMO. But I think there is that personal development piece, and I like to read quite a lot, and I don't like reading fiction. It just I get frustrated with fiction because I don't feel like I'm learning.
Oh my gosh,
And
I'm the same, and I haven't heard someone say that out loud before. I'm exactly the same. I try and I want to just read a fun
yeah.
book. The closest
Mm.
I got to was I just went to Thailand recently with my beautiful new fiance, and
Right.
we got engaged when we were over there. And I brought over Elle Macpherson's biography, and that was the closest I could get to non-self-help.
Yeah, yeah, and really, it's a biography kind of. So you
Yeah,
still.
but it was great. And I did actually learn from her. So it kind of was,
Mm, mm,
really a self. But I have a thirst for knowledge and expanding and evolving
mm,
as well.
mm.
And it's so nice to hear that you're the same. So I don't feel weird now.
No, not at all, not at all. Um, but what was the one that I was going to refer to in terms of reading? The something about
Joy of missing out.
yeah. So it's the name of the book I'm thinking is it's the fear of being disliked. So
Oh,
overcome. I
yes.
know that's what it's called. I think the fear of being disliked. Um,
Yeah, the courage also, the courage
Courage. That's right.
to be
Thank you.
disliked. I've read that. He's got a
That's it.
few. He's got a few. Yeah.
Yeah,
I highly
and that sort of feeds into that sort of that spiritual side of things. That
yeah,
where do I sit on this continuum? Am I the student or am I the teacher?
yeah,
And what lessons can I take from that book? And so,
yeah,
that's that piece that I think you're hinting at as well with that self-development side of things is that, the better we know ourselves, the better equipped we are to deal with anything that comes our way.
yeah.
And I think that it is a journey, right? It's an evolution. It's something that, it's just, it's compounding and you're getting better and better at doing those things.
Can you give me an example where you have seen a wonderful transformation in what was a burnt out, stressed leader, where they, really shifted into, high performance, but doing and being less?
I can, and it's somebody who you wouldn't expect it. It's not the CEO of a large organization. It's actually a woman who ran her own business, but she was my officially first coaching client, and
Cool.
um, and I use her. I've got a course called Coaching for Coaches, and I use her as my example when I teach the course because it went really well, and I was really green and was still learning the process, but we were supposed to do a like a voice call, like Zoom, or whatever the phone version might be, to be able to see each other, have a conversation. I think it was back in the Skype days, and we just couldn't get the tech to work. And so we ended up having a telephone conversation every single time we had a coaching session. So I'd pick the phone up, she'd pick the phone up. I've got my spreadsheet of things that I'm sort of tracking. And this went on for months. So let me give you the background of the lady. So she'd gone through a divorce. She owned her own business, and she had a considerable client base. So she was a bookkeeper slash accountant. So it was a one-man band with a little bit of help, and so she was kind of always a little bit overworked, and so
Yeah.
never quite felt in control. And so the big stressful event was obviously the divorce. That can have a massive effect on your
Oh,
physiology, right? Which we know. But then in the background, the ongoing stress was the fact that she was always on the treadmill trying to catch up with clients and never really felt like she was getting ahead. So one is the significant event, and then you've got that ongoing background noise, which was a recipe for, well, classic recipe for stress and burnout. And so it went really well. We, over the course of however many months on the phone,
yeah.
Trish got back to a place where she was energized. She had found another partner, but wasn't married. She'd got her two kids at home, and was working in her office at the bottom of the garden. And she had this nice balance, but it was never quite right. And so we got to the place where she was, felt on top of things, like she did things like got more contractors in so she could delegate work out, so
Yeah,
she was then
great.
on top of the background burnout, and then it was just about finding a happy work-life balance for her that meant she was still having a profitable business, but her energy levels were coming back to normal. So that was really rewarding for me because it was like, yes, pat on the back, you've done all the right things, Rich. You've nailed it. Trish is a happy customer, and she's going to go on and live a happy life. So yeah, it was a great story.
Beautiful. You led her through the process. It's such an honor, I find, being a coach and helping someone to transform their health and life and business in that way. And you become quite close because it's quite a,
Mm, mm,
intimate journey together.
yeah, very much so.
Oh, well, can you please leave us with one tip of anyone out there that's really at the start of the process where they're feeling burnt out and they just don't know how to shift it and they can't really see that it's possible? What's one thing you would say to them, Richard?
Yeah, good question. I think the one thing I would say to them is, what's the one thing? So
Yeah,
it's always about making it as small and as achievable as it possibly can be at the beginning of the journey.
yeah,
So I'm assuming that if I'm talking to them, they're open to change, they're wanting something to shift.
yeah,
And my question to them is, what's one thing you can do today, tomorrow, or by the end of the week that is going to help step you in that right direction? And I know that sounds really simple, and like you said at the beginning, these are simple but effective techniques, and the science backs it up. So you've got um, experts out there who have studied this stuff, which I just read their books, and I know that I trust them because they've done the hard work. And BJ Fogg, who's the world expert in habit change and behavior change, who wrote Tiny Habits, who was the teacher of James Clear. James Clear got all of his expertise from BJ Fogg at Stanford. Is a really useful place to start because surely that's the gold standard in terms of looking at behavior change and how it's sustainable and how you're going to improve things as you go on. So that would be it. It's about that one thing, and once that person can commit to the one thing and complete the one thing, they get that little dopamine hit. They are motivated by the success, and then that success will help them do the next thing. So I think that's really where the journey starts, is what's one thing, because then the belief is there.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh,
Mm.
I really love chatting to you this morning, Rich. You've got a beautiful story, and I love what you do, and I love what you're about and how you help your clients. And you're just filled with knowledge. I could talk to you for hours.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been great talking.
Thank you. So, where can clients find you? You're based in New Zealand, but I imagine you do a lot of remote
That's right.
work.
Yeah, I do. I reckon probably the best place would be LinkedIn. So go and have a look for. I go by Rich, but Richard Ellis is the full name on LinkedIn. If people are typing in Rich and they can't find me, that's why.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll
but
put all the links in.
yeah. So yeah, LinkedIn's good. You can message people on LinkedIn and say hello and connect up. So I reckon that's probably the best place. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I'll put all of your links and your website
Awesome.
and
Thank you.
socials in the show notes. Rich, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great chatting.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode on the Ben Like Bamboo podcast. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on the Ben Like Bamboo Resilience podcast. I hope today's conversation inspired you. And if this resonated with you, please rate, follow, and share it with someone who needs to hear this episode. If you would like to go deeper with me, whether you're leading through burnout, navigating health challenges, or rebuilding after setbacks, I'd be honored to support you. Head to benlikebamboo.com to explore our programs, check out my new book, or book a free discovery chat. Trust your ability to bend and flow with life. I'll catch you at the next episode.